get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down, all right? And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down.
And welcome in, Kneecaps Nation. We are off and running on another jam-packed episode of Kneecaps for Breakfast. I'm Vince Progar, and yeah, that's all fine and great and everything like that. But ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together one time for the man right across the room from me, Phil Byrne.
Jared Goff. Oh, wait. Okay.
Wait, Jared Goff's on our podcast? When did
wait,
this
hold
get
on.
arranged?
Who's popping up in Zoom? No, sorry. It's me.
Oh,
It's
man.
me.
It's okay.
Sorry to
Hey,
disappoint.
you're wearing your hat backwards kind of like Jared does, though, so I guess you're kind of cut from the same cloth, right?
His bank account's looking a little healthier than mine at the moment.
Yeah, I'd say so. So what a great place to kind of get rolling here, Phil. I don't think we really have a whole ton of time for small talk chit-chat. A lot happened since our last episode, and I think you and I kind of hinted at it at the tail end of the last episode, how at least my gut feeling was led to believe that something was going to get done the week of the schedule reveal, which was this past week. And sure enough, I kind of thought it'd get done the same day as the schedule reveal, but Brad Holmes and company decided, hey, let's just get it done first thing Monday morning, and we can go into the schedule reveal already knowing who our quarterback is. 4 years, $212 million, over 170 of that guaranteed, an average annual value of about $53 million. Jared Goff got paid, Phil.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And obviously, like, this went into some of the talk, throughout the last couple of months of we felt like they were close, even though that there was the report that they weren't. But I think that was a pretty vague report, to be honest.
Maybe a smoke screen or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And no one's going to mistake Jared Goff for Patrick Mahomes, for Justin Herbert, for one of the quarterbacks with just insane arm talent. But what he does is he is methodical, he is accurate, and he's the best quarterback that you could have on the 2024 Detroit Lions and Ben Johnson's offense. The rhythm that he has developed with Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and just, I think okay, so I'm not looking in front of the stats. This is basically just something I saw in the last week, saying that he was the best goal line quarterback for efficiency rating in 2023. I heard that was out there. I wish I had the data to back it up and give you exactly what the breakdown was on it. But it's reasons like that. His pure efficiency in running the Lions offense is why he gets that contract, and why the Lions are on a short list of teams that have a reasonable shot at not only making, but winning the Super Bowl. I don't think you'll find anyone that will say he's worth every single dollar because of the insane amount of money that pro athletes make in 2024. It is what it is. But for the Lions and for the hype and for the hope, I'm glad they got this done. I really am. And we'll figure out the tail end of the back end of the contract when we get there. But this is, something that we were able to obviously get the 2 other deals done ahead of time with St. Brown and Sewell. So happy he's our guy. And, we can obviously focus on bigger things now.
So just to kind of go a little bit deeper into the actual numericals of this contract. So again, as I said, 4 years, $212 million, which includes a $73 million signing bonus. 170 plus of that is guaranteed for an average annual salary of $53 million, in case you're, doing the whole NHL type of thing. So here's what we're looking at on a year in and year out basis moving forward. So the cap hit for the year 2024 will be a little over $27 million. That's going to be about 10% of the team's salary cap for this upcoming season. 2025, that cap hit becomes $32 million, which will take up a projected 12% of the cap. 2026 is where things really start to get interesting. Jared Goff's salary hit moves up to a whopping $69.6 million in the year 2026, which is about a quarter of where all of their money is going to go for that season. A little bit less than that in 2027. You're a little over $54 million. Now, this is where an out exists. So they can get out of the deal after the year 2027. If they decide to pick up that option for year 2028, that would incur a $61 million cap hit for that season. And then that's the end of the deal at that point. And at that point, Goff will be in his mid 30s. And I doubt that the Lions would put good money into keeping him around at that point. But Bill, I'm not going to lie to you. When the news of the Goff extension first came out and I saw the numbers, I did wince just a little bit because you essentially made him the highest paid Lion to ever put on a uniform, whether it's for the Detroit Lions or the Portsmouth Spartans or any iteration, the highest paid player ever to put on a Detroit Lions uniform. The only average annual value that is higher than Jared Goff's is Joe Burrow's. And the only person to get more money than Jared Goff is Patrick Mahomes. So those are two guys to where I think you and I can both agree that Jared Goff doesn't necessarily breathe the same air as Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
That essentially makes him the highest paid player in the history of the NFC. So what I'm looking at here is Goff at this point. Okay, I think we can all look back and celebrate and appreciate everything that he's done to get the Lions to this point. But I don't think there's any way around it that he needs to step up and perform at a level higher than he has performed at this point to live up to that contract. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of revisionist history, people coming out of the woodwork and saying, see, I told you they should have drafted another quarterback, or they should have given Hendon Hooker the keys to the Ferrari, or something like that. I fully agree that you're in a situation where you need to have a quarterback in this league. You can kind of see what's happened with the Tennessee Titans over the years. They haven't been solid at the quarterback position for a long time, haven't been good for a long time. The Atlanta Falcons, yeah, they kind of got by, limped along with Matt Ryan, took them to a Super Bowl that one year where they choked it away. Ever since Ryan got long in the tooth, they've kind of experimented a few different things at quarterback. Hasn't worked out. I can go on and on and on and on. Tampa Bay wasn't worth a good you-know-what until Tom Brady came along at the tail end of his career and got them a Super Bowl. Other than that, it hasn't happened. So I fully subscribe to the fact that if you have the ability to lock your quarterback down for a number of years and be set at that position, I think it behooves you to do just that. But I will say I did wince a little bit when I saw those numbers.
So there's a couple things. Give it a month, give it 2 months, and I know Tua. We kind of went over some of the quarterbacks that are probably going to be getting new deals here soon. Tua, I think, probably being the next one up.
Although it sounds like things are a little dicey down there. I think you
Yeah.
almost don't have a choice if you're Miami. It's almost like Tua holds all the leverage at this point. But it sounds like the talks down there in Coral Gables are going a lot dicier than the talks with the Lions and Goff ever did.
Yeah. So, point being is probably by the start of the season, there will be another quarterback, whether it's Tua or someone else, that will occupy a salary on par with Jared Goff or not more. So, we'll kind of see how that goes. I think the other thing to keep in mind is this is the Lions' window. We have 2 rookie quarterbacks that just entered into the division. And I would say Chicago has the roster that is a little bit more ready to compete atop the division. But make no mistake about it, all the poker chips are going in this year. I don't want to say this is like a win or bust kind of scenario, but even 2 years down the line, we don't know what the roster construction is going to be like. I would assume with the Goff deal, It's going to be a lot harder to get Aleem McNeil. He'd probably be the next guy up. Aiden Hutchinson will need, a new
The
deal at
following
some
year.
point here. Yep. So, and then obviously way down the pike, you'll be looking at Sam Laporta and guys from, this last draft that they had. Jameer, he's a running back, but
I don't know if you pay Gibbs at
yeah,
this point, but I see what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah. So, anyways, it's just going to have to be something that we kind of reason with. I see no reason why 2 years from now the cap just won't continue to get raised up, especially when you've got all those streaming partners wanting to get involved on the TV side of things. So, um, I think it had to get done. Lions window is right now. I think you have such a young team that you're going to be the favorites entering the season. Green Bay has a fun and young roster, at least offensively. Defense, I think they've got some questions. Minnesota's building, but I think JJ McCarthy will be steady for him. But yeah, it's now and obviously as we'll get into the schedule here a little bit into the show. I think there's some quirks in it that play into the Lions' favor and some things that they're going to have to watch out for. But Jared Goff's the guy; he got his big money, and yeah, we're just going to have to figure out where the pieces go after that.
Does it concern you in any way that Goff has had all of his success in a Lions uniform under Ben Johnson? And we know that he'll be back for this season, but committing to Goff and giving him loads of money for several years to come under the assumption that this is probably going to be Ben Johnson's last year as offensive coordinator, does that give you any pause as to the finality of this contract?
Slightly, but it's not so much the play design or the structure, but it's Johnson's reading of a play sheet and way he's getting teams off balance. I don't know who the next offensive coordinator would be. Is that Mark Brunell? Maybe. I think he's currently the
He's currently the
quarterbacks coach.
quarterback's coach, so if they decide to
Yeah,
promote from within,
yeah,
that'll probably be a natural case, which would also make sense because he will have worked for Jared Goff during the entirety of his tenure
yeah,
with Detroit. So that would make sense as opposed to bringing in somebody from the outside who may be a bigger name or maybe a more experienced play caller. Obviously, Mark Brunell's never called plays before, so that's going to be something that's going to need to be hammered out at some point, especially with this long-term commitment to Goff.
yeah. So, um, partially, yeah, I would say a little bit, but it isn't so much the structure. And quite honestly, if Ben Johnson were to leave, I can see Goff just being the captain and the signal caller. I could see him having a little bit more input in terms of play design and how they want to run certain series in the game and stuff like that.
You and I kind of touched on it earlier in this offseason that this may be a caveat of a long-term deal. So it's one of Goff's biggest criticism is that he's just not this isn't necessarily in my words. I'm paraphrasing what I'm hearing from social media and talking head pundits around the league, that he's not a mobile quarterback, that he's not a flashy guy, that he's not a guy that's going to blow up the highlight reels on YouTube or the highlights of NFL, ESPN, whatever the case may be. Do you think that part of the conditions of his contract is to try and get him to maybe be a little bit more athletic in terms of the plays that are run for him? And if that's not something that he's capable of, maybe make that a point of emphasis this offseason and training camp in some of the offseason workouts. Do you think any conversations to that end have taken place?
I don't know. I just don't know how much more agile you can get, after the age of 24, 25. I think with Stafford, one of the reasons that he seemed to get a little bit quicker, um, I felt like he just lost weight, from when he came into the Lions versus, year 6 or 7 with the Lions. Um, it's obviously never been a weight issue with Goff. It's been a little bit just being kind of lanky, more than anything. Um, but I venture this. They didn't win it. You made a Matt Ryan comparison a little earlier in the show. He got to the Super Bowl with that Atlanta Falcons team. You could argue the Lions have a better offense than that Atlanta Falcons team. He was not the most fleet of foot, and he was well into his 30s when they got to that Super Bowl. So there's a structure in place for Jared Goff to follow, to kind of get to where they need to. Um, I think more than anything, it's just going to continue to get a better control and grasp of this offense, and probably pick up a little bit more checking in and out of certain coverages and things like that, and we'll just kind of see where that goes. Like I don't know how much better he's going to get when it comes to being athletically gifted or anything like that. He is what he is at this point. But again, you're not going to roll Hendon Hooker out there and expect to get to the Super Bowl. But this is the best case scenario that the Lions have right now.
We've had nothing but good things for the most part to say about the Brad Holmes regime, but I think now you can look back with hindsight being 2020 that the Hendon Hooker draft pick, where you wasted third-round draft capital, not this past draft, but the one before that, almost kind of seems like a mistake at this point.
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's a mistake, just because that was still a pretty good quarterback draft, right? So that's not the draft where you had the Pickett, or not Pickett. Pickett from Pitt. Be the top quarterback or whatever, where you'd just be absolutely reaching for someone. Now, granted, that draft did have Brock Purdy, in there, but
it also had Desmond Ritter. I mean, I don't
exactly.
think you can analyze that too deeply.
Let me be honest. We have not seen Hendon Hooker take a snap yet.
I hope we don't see him, because if we do see him, that's not a good sign. That means Goff is either hurt, can't play, or is playing so poorly and ineffectively that they just need to do something to change things up. Either scenario was not favorable.
Well, not to spend too much time on this, but I would rather have Hendon Hooker and the promise that he has a good arm, he's got some mobility, and he's cheap, as opposed to the David Blows of the world, or any other sort of run-of-the-mill backup quarterback that we have had over the last 10 years. That wasn't who was that veteran that was the backup behind Stafford way back when?
Like Sean Hill.
Sean Hill.
Yeah.
Right. So I have no doubt that he will be a more than capable backup. He's just been hurt. He's a little bit older, but I think if he had to come in for a half of a game and, the season was counting on it, you'd be able to get good play out of Hendon Hooker.
This might have to be a discussion that we get more deeply into on one of those episodes, kind of like last week, where there wasn't really a whole lot going on, because I do have more thoughts on this, but we have way too many other things to touch on to, like you said, waste too much Hendon Hooker discussion here. But in any case, a lot of the success that we see from Jared Goff and the Lions is going to depend on how they navigate through this 2024 NFL schedule that was just released this past Wednesday. After making us wait it out an extra week, we were all kind of looking forward to it the prior week. But here we are. We actually have our schedule right here in front of us, and I'm sure it's been looked over dozens of times, and everybody's now gone through their win-loss type of thing, game by game. But we'll kind of rehash it the best way we know how here. So just a couple of broad overview points here. The Lions got their respect from the NFL from a primetime standpoint. They got essentially every primetime game they were allowed to do, because you're only given a certain number of primetime games in a course of a regular season. So they were maxed out with what they were able to do there. They got 2 Sunday night football games. They got 2 Monday night football games. They got 1 Thursday night Amazon Prime game. And then, of course, they got the Thanksgiving game, as they always do. We won't necessarily get into, whether they're going to win or whether they're going to lose. We can save that for a little bit later in the summer. Again, maybe when there's a little bit more of a lean news week type of thing, we can go deeper into analyzing each individual game. We'll just kind of keep things broad here. But the NFL didn't waste any time putting the Lions at center stage and putting the fans into a position where they're going to have no choice but to get eyes on a big matchup that really makes a lot of sense from a Lions fan standpoint, and that's by bringing the LA Rams and Stafford and company once again back to Ford Field, where it all ended for the Rams about 9 months prior to that. Sunday Night Football on NBC, Rams versus Lions for the second time this calendar year. I think you kind of hinted at it, Phil, that it was either going to be that as the opening night game or maybe putting the Lions in Dallas. But in any case, Rams Lions made a whole lot of sense, and that's what the NFL wound up doing.
Yeah, I really did. And it's going to be hard to replicate the atmosphere and the environment that that Rams playoff game had. That was the first public sighting that we had of the Jared Goff chant.
But I think if any fan base is capable of coming close to that, it's this fan base.
Yeah, I fully expect the weather being what it will be, being a night game. Downtown's going to be electric. It will be electric. There will be plenty of tailgating taking place. It will be like a little mini party, I would venture. That Sunday. I'm probably going to be taking that Monday off from work. So, and actually, Vince, now that I'm talking this out, Sunday Night Football means we can't do our normal recording schedule for the podcast. So we'll chat off air about that one at some point here. But
because that was a special case during the playoff run where we were doing a recording at 1:00 in the morning. I don't think that this warrants such a change from the schedule, but yeah, you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, but hey, it's a great spot to be in. That is the premier game, the Sunday night spot. You're getting it against the Rams, and I'll be honest, getting a playoff contending team at home to start the season. It should be full strength on full strength, should be a lot of fun. And I'm just really glad we've kind of put the Detroit Rams behind us. And if you haven't embraced the Lions now, I don't know.
If the last season playoff run didn't do it for you, then I can't help you.
Yeah.
You're in deeper trouble than I thought.
Should be a good one to start the season.
And then immediately after that, 2 home games in a row to start the season, and the second rematch in as many games, as well as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be coming to town. Again, Buccaneers season ended at Ford Field, so they're going to do the back-to-back playoff rematches from the prior season. Again, second time this calendar year, Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming to town. That's going to be a 1:00 game on Fox. And you're not going to hear me saying 1:00 on Fox very often, not at least compared to what we did the last several years. But that one is going to be a 1:00 game on Fox. Do you think the NFL did that on purpose, Phil, how they did the Rams at home, followed immediately by the Buccaneers at home, or is that just a random scheduling coincidence?
I think it is a little bit of a random scheduling coincidence. Last year, kind of similar scheduling quirk as this year, not playing any divisional opponents, or at least not a ton of games right off the bat. Of course, we know on the back end, you're going to get that final week of the regular season against a divisional opponent. Last season, we had Packers in week 2, but I think we had to wait a long time before we had another game against an NFC North opponent, if memory serves me right. Let me throw this back to you, though, Vince. The Bucks, I think, are in the worst division in football. I think the NFC South is an absolute heaping pile of dumpster residue, if you will. Do you think they're the favorite in that division, or do you think it's the Falcons at this point?
I'm very curious to see what the quarterback situation looks like down there in Atlanta, whether Cousins is actually able to heal up quickly enough from his operation. I mean, coming back from an Achilles is not an easy thing to do, especially when you're getting a little bit long in the tooth like Cousins is. Will we see Michael Penix Jr. play in any meaningful action? And if that's the case, even though he is about as NFL ready as just about any quarterback that came out of the draft this past year, I don't worry so much about him as I do maybe some other guys who are a little bit more green. But I think there's going to be a lot to be said about whether he's going to be able to establish a connection with his receivers, whether he's going to be able to pick up on the terminology and what have you of a new coaching staff, because he is going through the offseason not necessarily taking the first team reps. So if there's a little bit of hijinks going on with the quarterback situation down there in Atlanta, I would agree that it's Tampa Bay's division to lose. I don't think Carolina is a threat by any means, and I don't think New
Mhm.
Orleans is a threat by any means. So I
Yeah.
think Tampa Bay will be the favorite in that division
Yeah.
if there is some uncertainty with the quarterback position in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's going to be a two-way battle between the Bucks and the Falcons.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that one.
So the first road game of the season will take place in week 3 as the Lions head down to the desert to take on the struggling Arizona Cardinals in a 425 game on Fox. The Lions have struggled down there in Arizona over the course of their current iteration of the Arizona Cardinals, Phil. I can probably only count just a handful of times over that time span where the Lions have gone into the desert and gotten a win. So it's not necessarily a gimme, Phil, but in any case, that's where the Lions are headed week 3.
Yeah, we'll have to see if Kyler Murray playing with Marvin Harrison Jr. can rejuvenate that offense a little bit. They started to pick up a little bit of juice towards the end of the regular season, at least playing a little bit better. But I think from a roster construction standpoint, they're still, bottom fifth of the league, probably. It should be a game that the Lions should easily win. And I would expect it being a road game, being out west in Arizona. It will be majority Lions fans at that game. So even though it is a true road game, I think that first road game is going to have
One of your
a
blue
pretty
wave type games.
exactly. So I don't think it's going to be a difficult place to play by any means.
And then you've got Monday Night Football week 4 as the Lions host the Seattle Seahawks for the third year in a row. And for the love of God, Phil, can we please get off the schneid against the Seattle Seahawks, a team that I can look at each of the last 2 times that we've played them, and I cannot look you in the eye and tell you that Seattle was the more talented team or the better team. They may have been the better team on that day, but
Yeah.
both the 2023 edition and the 2022 edition are games that the Lions could have and should have won. For whatever reason, they did not. This is a good opportunity, Phil, on Monday Night Football in front of a national audience, not buried at 1 o'clock on a random Sunday, to make a statement against a team that's going to be working in a new coaching staff. And we'll see if they can finally get the best of Geno Smith and the boys on Monday Night Football week 4.
So I'm going to zig where people might zag on this one. A lot of people are going to pay close attention to Geno Smith and how he has burned the Lions year after year, here in recent memory. My focus is, you just mentioned it right there, Mike McDonald, the former Ravens defensive coordinator, the Seahawks new head coach. If you remember, that was the true one extreme lopsided game from last year. That defense of the Ravens somehow figured out a way to absolutely just wreak havoc on the Lions offense. And of course, Lions offense is playing from behind right out of the get-go. So they had that in their favor. Now,
And
there
of
is a
course, the
huge
personnel package is going to be different.
personnel package will be different. And of course, the Seahawks defensively don't have all the talent that the Ravens, did last year. But still, from a scheme and standpoint, Mike McDonald's very talented. So, expect a little bit of a dogfight in that one.
And then the Lions get a bye week for week 5. They get the earliest bye week out of any other team in the NFL this year. Phil, we got lucky last year in that we got kind of a later bye than an earlier bye this past year, but it seems like more often than not, the Lions get stuck with an earlier bye. Your thoughts on the early bye versus a late bye, and what is a more favorable outcome for a team in either situation?
Yeah, you would much rather have a later one, and it just helped that the Lions last year, only had a couple of significant injuries, really, that were lasting. You had Frank Ragnow kind of dealing with some nagging injuries. You had the guard. Shoot, he's no longer on the team.
Jonah Jackson.
Yeah, Jonah Jackson, and then of course, Chauncey Gardner Johnson. He was out for the significant part of the season. So James Houston as well. But you want to have that late bye because you can rest up for your stretch run, and I think that is true con to a lot of the pros that this schedule has to have. And of course, just from like a rhythm standpoint, like, what are we gonna do? It's what would that be, the first week of October?
That is going to be, yes,
Yeah.
October 6th.
Come on now. You're taking away a Sunday football of the Lions on the first week of October.
So in any case, the good news is that the Lions, if there's any silver lining whatsoever in that scenario, but the good news is that the Lions will not have to come off the Seahawks Monday night game on a short week. They'll get their bye right after that Monday night game and go back to Sunday. This is not a prime time or national TV game in the true sense of the word, but this will be America's Game of the Week 425 window on Fox with Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady as your broadcast crew. More on that later this offseason. As the Lions head back to the scene of the crime in Jerry's world, Lions Cowboys, October 13th, 425 on Fox. Going to be a good one.
It will be a good one. And how are the Lions going to get screwed over this time? No, let's not do that. Let's just get like a 10
as long as Brad Allen is not the officiating head for that game, I think we can maybe move forward a little bit.
I just want like a 10-point lead heading into the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter. If you can get me a 10-point lead, I don't think there's any tomfoolery that can really take place.
And if you blow it, then you deserve to lose.
Exactly. So.
And then right after that, maybe a letdown spot here. But again, we'll go into more of a prediction-based type of thing as we move forward in this offseason here. Following week, they go immediately up to Minnesota, their first divisional game of the season. Lions at Vikings, 1 o'clock on Fox. Who will be the quarterback? Will it be the Sam Darnold experience, or will they have finally given J.J. McCarthy the option to show everybody what he's made of?
Well, I'd probably have to look at the Vikings schedule to see how they're opening, quite honestly, to make that call, because it is still kind of early. But I truly think that by at least week 10, JJ McCarthy will be the starting quarterback of the Vikings. I think that's a pretty fair shot. So I think we will see him, in that final regular season game. Oh, spoiler alert. We're getting to it, though.
There you go. Week 8, the Lions come back to Ford Field for the first time in about a month. And this is a little bit of a scheduling quirk that I'll get to a little bit later on in the episode here, but the Tennessee Titans are coming to town for a 1 o'clock game. Again, there's never a gimme in the NFL,
No.
but maybe a get-right spot after a couple of tough games. In any case, Titans coming to town to round out October.
Yeah, so 2023's kind of snooze fest home game was against the Carolina Panthers. Let's hope it's another snooze fest and the Lions just kind of set some smooth sailing to a win right there.
Now this is where things really start to get real here. The Lions go back on the road for a couple of games, starting off with a game within the division. Lions at the Green Bay Packers, back on America's Game of the Week, 425 window on Fox. Lions at Packers.
Yep. So this is going to be an interesting one. I think this is going to tell a lot of people that, is Green Bay a legit contender, not only for the division, but for seeding purposes in the NFC. I tend to think that they got really hot at the end of the last season. I think the Lions still have, from a talent standpoint, a much better constructed roster. But make no mistake about it, I think they are a playoff team. So this will be a huge game, and I'm sure Green Bay is going to give them, their all in that one.
This is where I think the league did the Lions just a little bit dirty. Immediately coming off that game at Green Bay, the Lions are going to stay on the road and head down to the I don't even want to call them up and coming, the red hot Houston Texans. They opened up a lot of people's eyes around the league last season, and the league gave them a lot of love and the national TV respect this year as well. So Lions at the Houston Texans, and that one on November 10th is going to be Sunday Night Football, Lions and Texans. So I think that's going to be tough, having the Lions go on the road within division. Again, America's game of the week against the Packers. Immediately the following week, you got to go down to Houston, who by all accounts looks to be the favorite in the AFC South on Sunday Night Football. A couple of tough games in a row there.
Yeah, a lot of people comparing D'Amico Ryans to Dan Campbell as far as just like overturning the culture, overnight. And obviously we well know what CJ Stroud did. Will Anderson, another fantastic rookie from last year as well. They've got some building blocks, and we'll have to see if they're going to be an elite AFC team this season.
Speaking of AFC team, the Lions are heading into a stretch where they're playing a couple of AFC teams in a row, as the Lions are finally back in the friendly confines of Ford Field for a 1:00 CBS game as they host the Jacksonville Jaguars. And again, you almost got to wonder. I know this is the NFL, and this is what you hope to get as a team with a solid record the prior year. That's the way the scheduling structure has been set up for a number of years now. So this is all just part of the medicine you got to take if you want to go on a nice long playoff run and win divisions like the Lions did. But in any case, hosting a team like the Jaguars, who they've been up and down over the years, but again, maybe a possible letdown spot for the Lions here.
Yeah, it could be. Trevor Lawrence is kind of an enigma to me. I think we all saw what he did at Clemson. He came into the league, probably the most hyped up quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck.
So many expectations.
So many expectations, kind of a culture that, as you mentioned, is up and down. They'll have one good season every 5 years, and then it's the 4 years in between are just absolute terrible. So, I think they finally got the coaching spot right, with Doug Peterson. He's obviously not Urban Meyer and the mistake that was, but Jacksonville, they're going to be one of the interesting teams for me, I think, this season. Them and the Colts, and kind of just what we're looking at with both those teams.
So, Phil, you touched on these guys just a second ago. The Indianapolis Colts are going to be next up for the Lions, Week 12 at Indianapolis. Lions and Colts, 1:00 game on Fox. And that's going to be a tough one to analyze just from surface level, because we still don't know what Anthony Richardson is at quarterback, if he'll even be playing quarterback, as much as he's gotten himself nicked up already in his infinitesimal NFL career as it is. But in any case, Lions and Colts, Lions back on the road for Week 12.
So if he's healthy, this is kind of the under the radar one game that I am truly worried about. We've seen the Lions' issues with running quarterbacks in the past, and there is no more physically gifted quarterback in the NFL than Richardson. So we'll see. I mean, it could be the Gardner Minshew show if he's still the backup out in Indy, but we'll see when we get there.
We were all wrong about the next one. Week 13 is going to be the Lions Thanksgiving Day game, and we knew that the Lions were going to be on CBS because the networks trade off between Fox and CBS every year, and in the even years, the Lions are the ones that are on CBS. And we know, based on history, that the NFL doesn't like to totally shun the AFC from their Thanksgiving coverage, so we thought maybe doing a rematch with the Bills 2 years later on Thanksgiving made a whole lot of sense, but the NFL is going heavy on the NFC this Thanksgiving, a highly anticipated matchup against the Chicago Bears, Bears and Lions on Thanksgiving. And Phil, I'm very intrigued by that matchup because that gives all the young guys on the Bears almost the entirety of the season to grow a little bit, take their medicine, take some losses, and maybe start to figure some things out by the time Thanksgiving arrives.
Yeah, and from a attending games in person standpoint, I've sold a couple of my Thanksgiving Day tickets in the past, not because I didn't want to see the matchup, but just because it's Thanksgiving. I had that with my family. We watched it on TV. That's kind of tradition.
And the turkey's waiting.
And the turkey's waiting, absolutely, and all the fixings, of course. But this is such a can't miss matchup that I truly think it could be the Bears that end up pushing the Lions in the division more than the Packers this season. That I don't know. I mean, it's still early, but I kind of want to go to this game, instead of just jumping at the gun of selling it. So, we'll see.
So the Lions are going to go back to back games on a Thursday the following week as we head into week 14. Lions Thursday night football on Amazon Prime Video with the dynamic duo of Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit on the call. Lions hosting the Green Bay Packers. Now, Phil, the last time that the Lions hosted the Packers on Thursday night football in the month of December was roughly 8 or so years ago, and that was the pass back and forth kind of thing game. So I'm hoping
Mm,
there's not the same level of hijinks in this game. But in any case, another highly anticipated
yeah.
matchup at Ford Field, Lions and Packers on Thursday night football.
Yeah, it's a Thursday night. So again, we're getting out of that Sunday at 1 p.m. window. We've got a number of America's Game of the Weeks if they still are on Sunday, but again, another very unconventional time slot for the Lions. But do you blame the NFL with the draft, the attendance that you had, the Lions? I'm sure the jerseys for some of the guys on the team are, among the, top 50, top 100, jerseys sold. Um, the hype is there around the Lions, and of course the Packers. A lot of people are there. Early season darling, I guess, from a gambling standpoint as well. So, rubber meets the road in the Thursday night game.
So a little, they call it the mini bye. You get a little bit extra rest after that Thursday night game. They don't play again for 10 days. Week 15, Sunday, the 15th of December. You mentioned them a minute ago, Phil, the Buffalo Bills coming to town on America's Game of the Week, this time on CBS. So this will be a Jim Nance and Tony Romo special. Kind of an interesting look with the Buffalo Bills this year. No more Stephon Diggs, no more Gabe Davis, but you still got that guy at quarterback, the Cowboy himself, Josh Allen. That's going to be a tough one for these guys.
I don't know, Jim. No, again, it's still the Buffalo Bills, and is Keon Coleman, the rookie, going to be their number one wideout?
Yeah, I mean you got Shadur, I think, as your number
Yeah.
one, and then your number two's got to be Keon Coleman,
So,
unless they bring Cole Beasley back for the eighth time.
you know, I don't know. I, 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 Josh Allen is such a phenomenal quarterback to watch, but I would much rather be Justin Herbert now, under the tutelage of Jim Harbaugh. And it looks like they're going to run the ball a lot more out in the Chargers or out in LA. So Josh Allen, I think, just we'll have to see. Maybe they'll bring in some veterans, before the season starts, or make a move or something. But
Is Joe
um,
Brady still the offensive coordinator at Buffalo?
I think so. I think so. Yeah, yeah. So, um, we'll see. We'll see. But it would be difficult to not have the Buffalo Bills in the postseason, just because we've been so accustomed to them being in there, and Josh Allen, kind of at least giving the Chiefs something to worry about heading into those games and stuff. But now the Bills, I'm sure will still be a formidable team.
Week 16, 3 days before Christmas, the Lions will make their visit to Chicago. Lions at the Chicago Bears, 1 o'clock on Fox. And if both teams play up to their potential, this is a game that I could very, very reasonably see possibly get flexed into America's Game of the Week slot at 425 or even being put on Sunday Night Football. That's a game that's on Flex Watch right from the jump.
So I haven't looked at every single game yet, but I would venture between the Bears and Lions on Thanksgiving and the opening day or the opening week game against the Rams. This game in Chicago probably is going to have the highest ticket price of any game this season. It is Chicago. Things are a little bit more expensive out there. Bears fans and those tickets, I'm sure, are going to be in very high demand. You get the Chicago Detroit rivalry. There's all those people on the west side of the state that maybe can't get Lions tickets that are going to want to go. I got to venture it's going to be in a very, very expensive ticket to watch this one in person.
And I'm looking at the Sunday night game that's scheduled for that week, and that's Buccaneers and Cowboys. So you hardly ever see a Cowboys game flexed out of the Sunday night
Yeah.
game. But if both the Buccaneers and the Cowboys fall short of expectations and the Lions and Bears exceed expectations, I've seen weirder things happen. But something to
Yeah.
keep an eye on moving forward. Then after Christmas, and yes, I said after Christmas, that means the Lions were not straddled with one of those brand new Netflix games that are going to be taking place on Christmas Day this year. So they avoid Christmas Day altogether. They will make their second Monday night football game of the season to go back to ground zero where the season ended this past year. The highly anticipated rematch out in Santa Clara against the 49ers, Lions and 49ers, Monday Night Football on week 17. So I think we're going to have a really good idea, at least we sure as heck better have a good idea at this point, what both of these teams are looking like heading into their playoff runs.
Yeah. And, the Lions social media team did a thing with the players in Allen Park now about what, game excites the Lions players the most. And by my count, it was either the Cowboys or the 49ers, and with good reason. I think a lot of Lions players, not just fans, thought that they should have been the team representing the NFC in the Super Bowl, and they let it through their fingertips. And just getting emotional thinking about it, of course. But yeah, it'll be a big one, a real big one, and no surprise that they wanted that one towards the end of the season.
Absolutely. And then to round things out, week 18, we don't know where the game's going to be placed on a time and TV slate, as the NFL always keeps week 18 on a to be determined basis to give the fans the best games and the best possible time slots. But for the second year in a row, the Lions will cap off the regular season at home against the Minnesota Vikings, a game that may or may not have any type of real meaning for the Lions as they head towards the playoffs. At least we are hoping they head towards the playoffs. But Lions Vikings to end the season at home.
Yeah, yeah, I think it will be a homecoming of sorts for JJ McCarthy at that point. Um, I think at best maybe the Vikings are looking at being like a 500 team. I think they have a lot of holes on offense that they're trying to kind of pigeon some places, pigeonhole some players into places that we'll have to see if they fit. But Justin Jefferson's still there, so if nothing else, that'll be a good warm up, hopefully for the postseason.
So we won't get into game by game predictions or anything like that just yet, Phil. That's a idea for another episode. But in any case, that's the hand that we're dealt. Pretty tough schedule, but we knew it was going to be coming based on the fact that they won the division the prior year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it gets started against the Rams Sunday Night Football, and I just so excited to kind of start the season and what's going to feel like just a massive game against Stafford again. So, um, you know, I think it'll be a great test too, for this Lions secondary, for Terry and Arnold, for Ennis Rakestraw, for, Brian Branch, maybe playing a little bit more safety. You let Puka Nakua just run wild on a couple plays in the postseason. Can you get that corrected? Can we get that fixed? Are we going to have a little bit more confidence in the secondary moving forward? So, plenty of time to analyze and hype those up. But I'm very happy as a Lions season ticket holder that you don't have to wait too long. We're not open the season against the Titans or anything like that. It is the Rams on Sunday Night Football.
You're going right into it. Absolutely.
Yep.
And we wouldn't want it any other way. You're listening to this episode of Kneecaps for Breakfast. Vince Progar, that's me. Phil Byrne, that's that guy. Thrilled you could be with us for an action-packed episode. It's an episode that we've been looking forward to ever since the news broke about the Jared Goff contract on Monday. So I, for one, have been stoked to record this podcast. Phil, I know you feel the exact same way. So we're having a blast so far, and I kind of want to pivot just a little bit, but also stick with scheduling here. I read a very interesting article CBS Sports, John Breach wrote the article about some scheduling quirks across the NFL, including some that haven't been seen in almost 100 years. So I want to touch on
Hmm.
a handful of these and kind of get your take on a few of them. So let's take a look at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs were dealt a schedule that no other team in the NFL has had to endure in the last 97 years. What is it that I'm referring to? With the Chiefs getting a Friday game, they'll play the Black Friday game against the Raiders, and they'll also play on Christmas Day, and they'll also play the opening Thursday night game. Kansas City will be playing on 6 different days of the week this year. The only day they will
Hmm.
not be playing on is Tuesday. You compare that to the Carolina Panthers, who don't have so much as one singular primetime game. Every game the Panthers will play will be on Sunday, and that's it. The Chiefs will be playing on 6 different calendar games this year.
Hmm. It's one of those things that I think the NFL, obviously, the Chiefs achieving what they can, but there's so many non-traditional or non-football households or consumers or people out there that started following the Chiefs because of Travis Kelsey and the connection with Taylor Swift, obviously. And I think the more that you get them out of the Sunday 1 p.m. window, probably the better for the NFL, just from like oh hey, it's the Chiefs. They're playing on a Wednesday night, which would be, I guess, the Christmas game. But yeah, kind of interesting there. You really don't see anything like that. And I just kind of curious how Andy Reid and the coaching staff's going to prepare for all the conventional days of practice and off days and rest days and everything that they're going to have to go through to get ready for that one.
Here's one pertaining to the Cowboys and the Giants. They're doing something that's happened only, this will be the second time it's happened over a 98-year span. And that's that the Cowboys and the Giants will play each other both times this season on a Thursday. They'll get the Thanksgiving Day game at Dallas, and they'll be given a Amazon Prime Thursday night game at the Meadowlands. So that's happened only one other time in the last 98 years, and that was this past year, actually, when the Lions and Packers played both times on a Thursday. So hadn't happened in almost a century, yet the NFL has tried that with divisional opponents 2 years in a row. How about that?
Why do I just think that second Thursday game between the Cowboys and Giants is just going to be one of those like Amazon games of yesteryear where you're just like, that's the game.
This is my option.
Ugh.
It's like Titans and Jaguars.
Giants just don't offer up anything to me. They've been bad for a long time, and I think the Cowboys are going to be going through a transitional phase, to say it and put it lightly. I think they're taking a step back this year.
Sticking with the NFC East here, this is a interesting one to me. The Cowboys and the Eagles, which again will probably be a big draw amongst NFL circles as a whole, maybe not so much in this market here. But the Cowboys and Eagles will be playing week 10 in a game that's actually going to be televised by CBS. The two teams would normally play on Fox, but since the NFL kind of did away with their all NFC games are on Fox, all AFC games are on CBS type of thing a couple of years back, that's not the case. So you're getting the first go around on Sunday Night Football, and then you have the other game being played on CBS. So Fox is shut out from Cowboys and Eagles altogether. I thought that was a little bit interesting because usually that's always got America's Game of the Week written all over it.
Yeah, and that's always a ratings boon too, with those two teams, and probably two of the top five fan bases in the NFL also. So interesting. Yeah.
How about this one between the Bears and the Steelers? This is probably one of the more bizarre quirks of this year's schedule. But the Bears and the Steelers will not play their first divisional opponent until week 11. And that is the latest in NFL history that any team has played their first interdivisional opponent. Both the Bears and Steelers will wait until week 11, and then it'll be basically all division the rest of the way.
And see, I kind of was starting to pick up on things like that with the Lions over the last couple of years, and I truly wonder if it is a case of
a deliberate backloading of the schedule, possibly.
Yeah, and we know the final week of the season, but it just kind of makes sense where you've got teams that are going to be, borderline in playoff contention, or thought to be in playoff contention. Kind of, if you're going to get in, you got to win your divisional games, right? So it's almost how it should be, I think.
To piggyback off of that, I want to take a quick look here at the week 1 schedule. And as I'm looking through here, I see 1, 2, 3 interdivisional games on week 1. So out of the 16 matchups on week 1, you're only seeing 3 of them being interdivisional. So maybe we're onto something about how the NFL is working to maybe backload that divisional to make it just a little bit more appealing to the common fan, maybe making the games mean a little bit more against teams that mean a little bit more to them down the stretch. Kind of interesting to take a look at.
I don't have those in front of me. What were those games? The week 1 interdivisional games?
You're looking at Texans at the Colts, the Panthers at the Saints, and the Raiders at the Chargers. So those are your only divisional matchups for week 1.
So I think the only one that I think from a competitive standpoint that I would say has my interest would be Texans and Colts. Curiosity factor, I guess, with the Chargers Raiders because of Harbaugh, but yeah, interesting.
So the Bears, speaking of the Bears here, will start the season with 3 straight games against the AFC South. And that's only the first time in the last 25 years that the Bears have opened up the year with 3 straight AFC teams. So again, we talked about how they're not going to be getting any divisional action until week 11. They're going to be AFC, AFC, AFC the first 3 games. 49ers, this is an interesting one also. They will be facing 4 teams over the course of their season that are coming off a bye this year. That's far and away the most in the NFL. So if you're a numbers guy, this was kind of broken down this way. The 49ers have a minus 22 rest differential, which means that their opponents are getting 22 extra days of rest on the 49ers. And that's the 3rd worst number for any team over the last quarter century. So 4 different times teams are coming off their bye week playing the 49ers.
And that's, from a talent standpoint, they should still win the West, but you have to wonder how that's going to factor into the Rams making up ground and making it a little bit more competitive with the 49ers. Are the Niners going to get someone who's well rested and get the Niners on a bad day? Because we saw it. They were beatable. And they did get lucky. In the final minutes of a couple of those games down the stretch. But yeah, that's a really interesting factoid there.
The last one I want to touch on has to do with the Lions, and we really didn't emphasize this point. I'm not even sure we brought this point up back when we were doing the breakdown of the Lions schedule. But this is one that stood out to me immediately when I wasn't able to catch the special on TV where they unveiled the schedule. So I went on the website, the team website, and kind of went through a game by game and kind of looked at all the matchups and destinations and TV networks that are airing the game and what have you. And this stood out to me immediately in that they will be playing hardly any outdoor games of any kind over the first 15 weeks of the season. We all knew what the matchups were going into the season, so we knew that, of course, they'd be playing Minnesota, who plays indoors. We knew that Indianapolis was on the schedule. They're indoors. We knew that the Texans were on the schedule. They're indoors, da-da-da-da-da-da. I won't go back down the line through that again. But the only outdoor game over the first 15 weeks will be November 3rd at Green Bay. And then after that, you have at the Bears right before Christmas. You have at the 49ers just after Christmas. And that's it for the Lions needing to go outdoors for any reason. But that has me a little bit concerned because you could have gone a different way with that, and the league decided to go this way. Week 9, November, at Green Bay. Can get a little chilly that time of year. Week 16, at Chicago. Gonna be very chilly at that point on the calendar. And then, of course, you never fully know what you're going to get in San Francisco. Obviously, they don't get anything freezing by any stretch. Heck, when the Lions played the playoff game there, it was a beautiful 70-degree sunny day in the middle of January. So that would have been the end of January at that point. So you never know fully what you're going to get in the Bay Area. But that could definitely play a factor. The Lions outdoors, Jared Goff outdoors, November at Lambeau Field, Christmas time in Chicago. Historically, doesn't go too well in those scenarios.
Yeah. As it stands right now, Jameson Williams is your number 2 receiver on the Lions. If there was ever a time for him to get into a rhythm with Jared Goff, it is now. With all the indoor games that they have, he's going to be fully healthy. He's going to get every single rep that he can get in the offseason. Maybe there is a little bit of madness to why they were more creative in terms of finding another receiver. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is still on this roster, but you don't have Josh Reynolds anymore. So this is going to have to be the JMO show, when it comes to getting into a groove and getting more reps. And we start to see him get a little bit more comfortable, in the postseason there. But let him fly, man. He is so fast, and to use that track speed in all these indoor games has kind of got me excited.
I am a little bummed that the league didn't go in the other direction and maybe given both the Bears game and the Packers game outdoors in September and just let them get them out of the way at that point. And that way there has to be no concern about cold weather or anything like that. But if the Lions are in a position where maybe they're not able to control their own destiny and get that home field all the way through, maybe forcing them to play outside in the elements in December and maybe shake a little bit of rust off. That way, if they're forced to do that in the postseason, like let's say they have to go to Philadelphia in January, heaven forbid, at least that's not their first time playing in elements or cold weather in however many years at that point. Maybe that can be a silver lining.
Yeah, no, that's a great point because, we'll have plenty of time to get into projections, but I could see a scenario where people are hyping up the Lions, people are hyping up the Niners, and no one's been really talking about the Eagles who added Saquon Barkley. And I think the running attack is going to be pretty good. So
you think they'll be okay without DeAndre Swift out there in Philadelphia?
I think so. I think so.
So Phil, that was a action-packed week this past week, to say the least, between the Goff extension and the release of the NFL schedule. I'm not sure how that can be topped for this coming week, but hey, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, so I mean, we release our show, every Monday morning when we can, and it was just kind of a weird coincidence that last week's show there wasn't much to go on, and then of course after we released it, we had the schedule release, we had Goff signing the contract, so just kind of getting caught up on things, but plenty to talk about, and happy to do it with you, Vince.
It was a good show, my friend, and I look forward to next week, and we look forward to being here with you next week on Kneecaps for Breakfast. We've got a lot that we can do over the next several weeks, and I'm sure we'll get into the NFL schedule and touch on the news of the week like we always do. But it's been a lot of fun, and we hope you're enjoying the last little bit of May. Time is flying through the offseason. We are thrilled to be with you here on Kneecaps for Breakfast. For Phil Byrne across the way, Vince Progar saying good morning, go Lions, forward down the field, over and out.